11, a grandmother is now mourning the loss of both her daughter and her granddaughter. DeKalb County police say the two were murdered after initially investigating the shooting as a murder-suicide. 11 Alive's Galat Malamed is live outside the DeKalb County Jail. Now, you just spoke with the grandmother. How's the family dealing with this tragedy?
Ron, that grandmother tells me this is a pain she feels through her whole body, and the family is relying on prayer and each other to get through this time. And tonight I learned from her that the suspect was in a relationship with her daughter.
Before evidence spoke, before the truth had time to surface, a woman was already being blamed for her own ending and for the loss of her child. Headlines move fast. Assumptions move faster. And by the time the truth arrived, two lives had already been defined by a lie. Tonight's story isn't just about what happened inside a quiet home in Stone Mountain. It's about how quickly narratives are formed, how dangerously easy they are to accept, and how often the real victims are silenced before they're even heard. Before we go any further, I want to pause for a moment. To everyone watching this, wherever you are, I pray for your safety and for the safety of your families. I pray for peace inside your homes, protection over your children, and strength for anyone silently carrying fear, confusion, or pain. If you're in a situation that feels heavy or unsafe, I pray clarity finds you and help reaches you before harm ever does. This is the True Crime Shadow, a space where we slow down the headlines, sit with the facts, and bring light to the stories that were misunderstood, misreported, or rushed into judgment. If you believe these stories matter, if you believe truth deserves time, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these voices from fading into silence, and it helps ensure stories like this are told fully, carefully, and honestly. Because what happened next would change everything people thought they knew. By the time most people woke up that morning, the story already felt settled. A woman, her child, a domestic argument that spiraled out of control. Police said it was a murder, asterisk icide. And for many, that explanation was enough. It fit into a narrative people thought they understood. Tragic, yes, but familiar. The kind of headline that lands heavy for a moment, then quietly moves on. According to those first reports, the woman inside the home had shot her own daughter, then shot the man she was with, before turning the weapon on herself. When officers arrived, two people were gone, one was still alive, and a conclusion had already been drawn. News alerts repeated it. Social media echoed it. Conversations formed around it. People shook their heads and said things like, "You never really know what's happening behind closed doors." And just like that, blame had a direction. The story framed Connie Jackson as unstable, overwhelmed, pushed too far. No context, no history, no space for doubt. It was easier that way, easier to accept a version that wrapped everything up neatly, even if it erased the complexity of the people involved. But that version of events came from only one place, inside that townhome. Only one adult was still alive to explain what had happened. Connie couldn't speak for herself. Her daughter couldn't speak at all. And in those first critical hours, the entire narrative rested on a single account, one that would soon begin to unravel. Because, as investigators would learn, the story everyone believed wasn't the whole story. Connie Jackson never had the chance to correct the record. From the moment that first headline went out, her name was already attached to an act she couldn't respond to, explain, or defend. And that silence mattered, because the woman people were being told about didn't match the woman her family knew at all. Connie was the oldest of 5 children, a role that quietly shapes a person early in life. When you grow up being the first, you learn responsibility before you learn ease. You become the one others lean on, the one expected to stay steady even when things feel unsteady inside. That instinct followed Connie into adulthood. She didn't demand attention. She didn't create chaos. She absorbed stress, smoothed tension, and carried weight without making it visible. Her mother described her as bubbly, even on her worst days. The kind of person who could walk into a room and lift the energy without trying. Anyone who saw her videos could feel it. The humor, the warmth, the ease with which she laughed and moved through the world. Connie wasn't hardened or volatile. She was open. She was hopeful. Sometimes too hopeful for her own good. Motherhood didn't change that about her. It revealed it. Connie was deeply protective, not in loud or performative ways, but in the choices she made every day. She tried to keep peace not because she was weak, but because she believed stability mattered, especially for her children, especially for the life she was trying to hold together behind closed doors. And that's why the early narrative cut so deeply. Because once Connie was labeled the aggressor, her character was reduced to a single moment that ignored everything she had been carrying for years. The woman who couldn't speak was being defined entirely by an explanation she never gave. And the person most affected by that silence was her daughter. Arielle was 11 years old, not old enough to understand the tension that sometimes lived inside her home, but old enough to feel when something was off. She existed in that space between childhood innocence and early independence, where the world still feels safe, creative, and full of small joys. She loved making playful TikTok videos, showing off the little things that mattered to her. What was in her bag, what made her laugh, what felt fun in that moment. They weren't performances. They were glimpses into a child's world that hadn't yet been hardened by fear or adult problems. Arielle was still learning who she was, still growing into herself, still protected by the belief that home was where she was safest. She didn't choose the environment she was raised in. She didn't choose the adults around her or the strain that existed quietly beneath the surface. Arielle lived inside her mother's world, a world Connie worked tirelessly to keep loving, steady, and intact. Whatever stress Connie carried, she tried to absorb it herself, shielding her daughter from its weight as much as she could. To Connie, Arielle wasn't just her child. She was her anchor, her motivation, the reason she endured situations longer than she should have. Every decision Connie made was filtered through one question: how does this affect my daughter? And that made leaving harder. It made waiting feel necessary. It made hope feel like a responsibility. When the early reports reduced Arielle to a secondary detail, they missed something crucial. This wasn't just a tragic ending. It was a life interrupted, a future erased inside a place meant to be safe. And the truth is, Arielle's story can't be separated from what was happening between the adults in that home. Because the relationship Connie was trying to hold together was already coming apart in ways few people could see. From the outside, it looked like a family holding on. Two adults sharing a home, children under one roof, a life that, at a glance, appeared stable enough. But what happens behind closed doors doesn't always leave visible marks. And in Connie's case, the damage wasn't loud, it was gradual. Roland Suku entered Connie's life as a partner she believed could be part of the family she was trying so hard to protect. Over time, their relationship became serious. They moved in together. They began building a shared routine. But as months passed, the emotional atmosphere inside the home began to shift. Not in ways that drew police attention, not in ways that left bruises, in quieter ways that are easier to dismiss and harder to escape. According to Connie's family, the relationship was marked by emotional and verbal control, comments that chipped away, tension that lingered, a sense of walking on eggshells that slowly became normal. It's important to be clear here. Connie never accused Suku of physical abuse. That line, as far as anyone knows, was never crossed. But emotional pressure can still suffocate. It can shrink a home. It can make a person question their own reactions, their own limits, their own worth. And still, Connie stayed, not because she didn't recognize what was happening, but because leaving isn't simple when children are involved. Because hope has a way of convincing you things will improve. Because walking away from a family you're trying to hold together can feel like failure, even when staying is hurting you. Then in June of 2025, everything became heavier. Connie gave birth to a baby boy, another life to protect, another reason to hesitate, another future to worry about. She wanted peace. She wanted stability. She wanted things to get better. But behind the scenes, the strain was building toward a breaking point. And eventually, Connie reached a moment where hope gave way to clarity. The call wasn't casual. It wasn't a routine check-in or a moment of small talk. When Connie FaceTimed her mother, something was different, and her mother felt it immediately. There was no panic in Connie's voice, no chaos. What came through instead was resolve, the kind that forms after someone has thought through every excuse, every delay, every reason to stay. Her mother would later say she knew right away. This time Connie was serious. She had reached a point where staying felt heavier than leaving, where endurance no longer felt like strength. Connie had finally made up her mind to get away from a relationship that had already taken too much from her. Not long after that FaceTime call, Connie spoke to her mother again, this time on the phone, and this call was even more direct. Connie said she had packed her things. She said she was tired. She said she was done. There was no anger in her words, just exhaustion and clarity. She wasn't threatening. She wasn't spiraling. She was preparing for a different future. But Connie didn't leave immediately. She still had a newborn in the house. She still had logistics to consider. She still carried the weight of wanting to do things carefully, the right way, whatever that meant to her in that moment. Leaving takes planning. It takes timing. And sometimes it takes one last night under the same roof. That phone call would become the last confirmed moment anyone knew exactly what Connie was thinking. Her mother tried calling back after their conversation ended, but Connie never answered again. The silence that followed wasn't just unanswered calls. It was a space where a decision had already been made, but safety hadn't arrived yet. Because the moment someone decides to leave is often the most dangerous one of all. The night didn't arrive with warning signs. It came quietly, the way ordinary nights do, with routines settling and the house slipping into early morning stillness. Inside the townhome in Stone Mountain, life looked the same from the outside. Children asleep, adults present, nothing visible to suggest that everything was about to break beyond repair. At approximately 1:15 a.m., DeKalb County Police were dispatched to the home. What prompted the call has never been turned into spectacle, and it doesn't need to be. What matters is what officers found when they arrived. Inside, they discovered a scene that would immediately shape the first version of the story. Arielle was found unresponsive. Connie was also found unresponsive. Roland Suku was still alive, suffering from gunshot injuries and in need of urgent medical care. Emergency responders moved quickly, focusing on saving the one life they could. Suku was transported to a local hospital with serious injuries while officers began securing the home and trying to understand what had just happened inside a space that, hours earlier, still held a family. Also inside that home was Connie's 6-month-old son. He was unharmed. He had slept through a night that took the lives of his mother and his sister. When officers realized he was there, he was removed from the home and later placed in the care of family, away from a place where everything had changed. In those first moments, police were forced to make sense of limited information. 2 people gone. 1 adult alive. A weapon involved. No outside suspect immediately apparent. And only one person capable of offering an explanation for what had happened. And with so many unanswered questions and only one voice left to speak, the story took a turn that would soon prove to be dangerously wrong. At first, the explanation sounded definitive. Police publicly stated they believed the incident was a murder, as icide. According to that early account, Connie Jackson had shot her daughter during a domestic argument, shot Roland Suku. and then turned the weapon on herself. It was a version of events that moved quickly, shaping headlines and public opinion before most people ever heard Connie's name. But early explanations aren't conclusions. They're placeholders, formed before evidence has time to speak. And as detectives continued working the case, that initial story began to crack, quietly at first. There was no dramatic announcement, no immediate reversal. Just investigators doing what real investigations require, going back, slowing down, and looking closer. Forensic evidence was re-examined. Timelines were scrutinized. Statements were weighed against physical findings. And little by little, things stopped lining up. Details didn't match the original explanation. Elements of the scene contradicted what had been reported. The more the evidence was reviewed, the harder it became to sustain the idea that this was a murder. This icide. Eventually, DeKalb County Police issued an update that changed everything. This was not a murder. Icide. This was a double homicide. The same man who had survived the shooting, Roland Succo, was now being charged with 2 counts of malice murder. Connie Jackson and her daughter Arielle were no longer being described as perpetrators in any version of the crime. They were victims. Reports have suggested that investigators questioned whether the scene had been made to look a certain way, or whether the plan went differently than intended. Those details remain under investigation. And what matters most is this: evidence, not assumptions, determine the truth. But while the narrative was corrected on paper, the damage from those first hours couldn't be undone. Because once a story takes hold in the public, it leaves scars that don't disappear just because the truth finally arrives. The official correction mattered. It restored dignity to Connie Jackson and her daughter Arielle, returning the truth to where it belonged. Connie wasn't violent. She wasn't spiraling. She wasn't a danger to her children. She was a mother preparing to leave a relationship that had already crossed too many lines. A woman making a choice to protect herself and her family. But even with the truth restored, the consequences of that night remain. Connie's mother, Arielle Jackson, spoke publicly in the aftermath, describing her daughter as someone with a big heart, someone who could make anyone laugh, someone who believed in the good in people even when they didn't deserve it. She remembered Arielle for her radiant smile, her playful spirit, and the way she lit up a room without trying. The family now carries the weight of grief while caring for Connie's 6-month-old son, a child who will grow up without his mother and sister. Siblings mourn the loss of their oldest sister. A mother mourns the loss of her firstborn. A family that once revolved around shared responsibilities and quiet strength now revolves around memory and sorrow. This case stands as a stark reminder of how quickly assumptions harden into headlines, and how easily women can be blamed when their voices aren't heard. It shows the importance of patience in investigations, the need to let evidence speak before stories become truth, and it emphasizes the fragility of safety, the danger that can exist in the very places meant to protect us. Connie Jackson was 33 years old. Arielle was 11. The truth came too late to save them, but it did arrive, proving that even when narratives are wrong, facts have a way of catching up. The story ends not with answers that feel complete, but with the silence left behind, the lives that were stolen, and the responsibility we all have to remember the people behind the headlines, humanely, accurately, and honestly. The story of Connie Jackson and her daughter Arielle is more than a tragic headline. It's a reminder of how fragile life can be, how quickly assumptions can shape public perception, and how essential it is to listen before judging. It's about the courage it takes to plan a departure from danger, the weight of carrying love and responsibility, and the lives forever altered in a single horrifying night. Even when the truth comes out, it can never undo the loss. What remains are the memories of a mother who gave everything for her children, a young girl whose laughter and light were stolen far too soon, and a family left to navigate grief while honoring the truth. Their story asks us to reflect not only on the events themselves, but on the importance of compassion, patience, and the quiet battles so many endure in silence. If you found this story meaningful, take a moment to honor Connie and Arielle by subscribing to the True Crime Shadow. We pray for your safety and the safety of your families, and hope that you never have to face the pain of losing someone in the way Connie and Arielle did. Every new subscriber helps us continue sharing stories that deserve to be remembered. Stories that remind us of the fragile, complex, and human lives behind every headline. Thank you for watching, and stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and stay with us as we uncover the truths that often go unheard.